What is going on, everybody? Welcome back here to the Matthew Geist Pod. We have a fun one for you guys today. I'm going to start off with a lottery mock draft. Now that we know who's in the Final Four, we've seen some of these collegiate prospects help their draft stock, hurt their draft stock. So I'm going to be doing a lottery mock draft and kind of going through those picks and giving who I think will go where, at least what we know at the moment. And then I'm joined by GiraffeNeckMarc. Mark, he's a big baseball YouTuber. So if you're into baseball, definitely watch that section of the pod. We give our standing wild card World Series predictions as well as our award predictions with MLB, Cy Young, and Rookie of the Year. And that's kind of what I wanted to do on this pod, is bring on different guests to talk about different sports, because I like other sports outside the NBA. So, I definitely want to get my NBA fix on. You guys saw me talk about, or at least listened to me talk about, the MVP race in the last episode. Today, I'm going to be talking about some of these draft prospects in a mock draft. And then the next episode, we're probably going to get around playoff time. So, you might get my playing tournament playoff predictions, hopefully joined by a guest there, as well as maybe talking about our end of the season award predictions. So, you guys can be on the lookout for that. And each one of these episodes might correspond with something that's going on in kind of the sports world. So maybe a late April pod is me talking about the NBA playoffs, as well as joined by a NFL guy or an NFL creator. And we're going to talk about maybe the NFL draft and stuff like that. So be on the lookout for that. Like I said, we're going to be getting into the pod today with a mock draft. Your guys' brackets probably as busted as mine. I was very high on UConn. I had them in my championship game. So, at least I got that right, but I had them losing to Alabama, which did not work out very well. Alabama lost to San Diego State in the Sweet 16. And they lost on the same night as Houston, was one of my other Final Four teams. And then my last one was Kansas State, who I really thought was going to be in the Final Four, and they ended up losing to FAU of all teams, who, it's FAU versus San Diego State in one side of the Final Four, and then on the other side, you have UConn versus Miami. I'm still riding UConn to go to the finals. I win a league where I win over $500 if UConn wins, so I'm going to be the biggest Husky fan this weekend. And then you guys, and then I guess I'll say San Diego State is going to beat FAU, even though it'd be super cool to see FAU in the championship game, just because it's so different than what it's been in the past. But I appreciate everyone that showed kind of support on the first episode. Either you listened on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or watched the video version on YouTube. I uploaded it to my SROS channel, where you can get a video version if you are curious to see kind of what's going on, if you want to see me and Mark talking to each other, and if you want to see a visualized mock draft simulator on fanspo.com, you can go head over to the SROS channel and watch it over there. I think it's going to be kind of unlisted videos. I'm not going to publicize them like I did in episode 1, just because it's kind of random content just to be uploaded there. But yeah, any links to my YouTube descriptions, you'll be able to get access to this podcast in the video format. And yeah, hope you guys are going to enjoy this. Like I said, we are going to have the MLB predictions, which I'm super excited for, because this should be dropping on opening day, which is one of my favorite kind of days of the year. It's like that first NFL Sunday. The NBA, it's kind of like the first playoff weekend that I just love so much. It's not really much opening night for the NBA. And then obviously you have your round of 64 in the March Madness. Are some of my favorite sport openers of the year. So we're going to start off with Fanspo with kind of the reverse standings right now. With the first pick, we have the Detroit Pistons. They were without Cade Cunningham most of the season, which sucks because you wanted to see him develop a little bit. Killian Hayes kind of didn't really make his mark that you think he's going to be in their long-term plans. Jaden Ivey definitely showed some year-long progression, which you love to see. I'm excited to see how they kind of allocate those minutes next year between Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, and James Wiseman, as well as the guy that I'm going to have them go number 1 overall with, Victor Wembanyama. Now, if they take Wemby, what happens to Duren's minutes? What happens to Isaiah Stewart, Marvin Bagley, James Wiseman? It is going to be an absolute logjam. I think you still try to progress Jalen Duren, and you can honestly, with that duo, have Wemby play the 4, make him a little bit more of a floor spacer, and then that can kind of help his game develop, and he's not going to have to really go up against guys like Joel Embiid and Bam Adebayo, possibly on the offensive end, guys that are kind of rim protectors closer to the basket, like Brook Lopez, Triple J as well. So maybe that could help Wemby's development, because there is going to be some ups and downs in his rookie season. I think this gives you the chance to trade Isaiah Stewart, who's a good player, but you could probably get some good value for him. Hopefully a little bit better value than you got for Saddiq Bey. I don't think any team's going to be jumping to trade for Marvin Bagley, so he's probably going to just back up Wemby. And then, yeah, you have Duren and Wiseman in your center rotation there. So I think Wemby will definitely work in Detroit. He would work on basically any team, and he's going to be the no-brainer number 1 overall pick. And they just kind of jump in there to one of the funnest young cores in the league, if not already. Like, it's been like a super exciting young core to watch, even with no Cade Cunningham this year. They definitely have had their struggles. I wonder if they are going to go in a different coaching route. But you're adding Wemby to Cade to Ivy, who you know is going to be the backcourt next year. And then you're going to add him to Duren. We'll see what they get out of Wiseman, possibly Isaiah Stewart if he's there. Maybe they move Bojan for somebody else. It's going to be very exciting to watch in Detroit. I think if they were a Scoot Henderson team, I don't know how I would feel about that. I think if I was Detroit, I would probably maybe even think about Brandon Miller at 2, but that's not going to be the case for this mock draft because they have the number 1 pick and they're taking Victor Wembanyama. So that leaves us with the number 2 pick, the Houston Rockets. Now, if these were flipped, it would be a little bit interesting because how would you think that Şengün and Wemby would coexist? But you know what? Probably similar to what I had for the Pistons. You put Wemby at the 4, keep Şengün at the 5. But we don't have to do that for this mock. We're going to have the Rockets at 2. This is another no-brainer. I would still go Scoot over Miller. Brandon Miller definitely didn't help his draft stock throughout the tournament, but he didn't really need to. He was playing throughout an injury. I believe he didn't even have a single point in the round of 64 game, which was kind of crazy to just kind of see that when Alabama blew out the 16 seed. So they're going to be taking Scoot Henderson, who's going to be that quote-unquote franchise point guard next to Jalen Green. You still get to keep Jabari Smith and Şengün in that front court. You could maybe even experiment with Jabari Smith at the 3. Maybe you start Tari Eason next year if you don't think maybe Jayshawn Tate's that guy. I'm all for moving Kevin Porter Jr. to the bench to have more of a wing position, and he can kind of lead that second unit if he would be down with that, but I'm not sure if they're going to even pick up his team option next season just because of how bad they are this year. They might try to not have a fresh start, but just go in a different direction. I'm all but sure that Steven Silas will not be back with the Rockets next season. And just for the people on YouTube, I tend to not look at my camera too much because I'm kind of looking at what's on the screen. So yeah, I'm going to try to look at the camera more because some people did comment that. But I'm going to have Scoot Henderson going to the Rockets here with the 2nd overall pick. You have Scoot and Jalen Green in that backcourt. Like I said, you have plenty of forwards and that you can try to develop still, like with Tari Eason, with Jabari Smith. What you think about Kenyon Martin Jr., who I still really like as a young player in this league, and Jayshawn Tate. And we'll see if they make another move as well in the offseason. They're going to have some cap space. We'll see if they end up with James Harden because, you know, if you end up with Scoot Henderson, I would just avoid James Harden at all costs because I think it would just hurt his development. But yeah, you go Scoot Henderson with the 2nd overall pick. That leaves us to number 3 for the San Antonio Spurs. An interesting one here because San Antonio could use that franchise point guard title that I just gave the Rockets with Scoot. They have plenty of wings, young wings. They have Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, who I've loved to see I've loved his development and his progression this season. You have Malachi Branham, Blake Wesley. You have Jeremy Shohan at the 4. You kind of have a lot of players in that 2 through 4. And Brandon Miller is my number 3 player in this class. He's been for a while now. I don't think he's going to top Scoot at that number 2 spot. But Miller is my number 3. I've tweeted about this kind of all season long, and I think he's still to play here. If you're the San Antonio Spurs, you could look into Amen Thompson if you want to get that point guard and you don't want to crowd this kind of wing set. Now, they could get crazy and go Jarace Walker out of Houston, play him at the small ball 5, but he's a physical dude, 6'7", but he does play taller than that. I think it really comes down between Brandon Miller and Amen Thompson, and if I am the Spurs, I think you go best player available with this 3rd pick. You can always have more wings, more talented wings. You can have a lineup with Jeremy Shohan playing the 5. You can have Brandon Miller at the 4, Johnson and Vassell still out there, and you can get fun and creative and crafty with those lineups, and it's a good problem to have a lot of young wings that could score and defend. So Brandon Miller is still my pick at 3. I could get if you think that they should take Amen Thompson, go for a point guard, but if you truly believe that Brandon Miller is the 3rd best player in this class, you take him at number 3. This is way too high to be picking not best player available. Honestly, in any case, you take best player available. I don't care if you have 3 future power forwards and centers, you're taking Wemby with the number 1 overall pick. Then you figure it out. So San Antonio, they're getting Brandon Miller with the 3rd overall pick here. I'm really enjoying this so far, kind of doing a mock on the pod because I can kind of go into my thoughts and you guys can kind of construct what I'm saying. You can let me know if you agree or disagree with any type of review or comment on YouTube, or even just let me know on Twitter. Would really appreciate that as well. So Hornets at number 4. This gets a little bit interesting. So Amen Thompson's my number 4 player in this class, which is still up for debate, but he's been for at least a little bit now. And would Charlotte go for another guard? They have Terry Rozier. They obviously have Lamelo Ball as their franchise guy at that point guard position. So would they go with Amen Thompson, who really wouldn't make sense playing next to those guys at the moment because his shooting really isn't there. It's going to take some time to develop, and they kind of need somebody that can be that next to LaMelo Ball because LaMelo Ball is going to have the ball in his hands, no pun intended. So you could debate between him and Thompson. You could debate between his twin brother, Asor Thompson, who's a little bit more athletic and play up, but also needs to work on his shooting ability. What I kind of love is Jarace Walker here with the 4th overall pick out of Houston because they kind of need that front court. You know, if Jarace Walker can keep developing his three-point shot, I think he's a perfect fit next to Mark Williams in that front court. PJ Washington's going to be a free agent very soon. They brought back Nick Richards, who I really like, and I think is an underrated player in this league. So you already have that center duo of Mark Williams and Nick Richards. You know what? You could fill in that power forward spot with Jarace Walker at 4. He, I think, is good enough where I'm comfortable taking him at 4. This isn't like a super surprising pick to be taking him here. It's not like you're taking Anthony Black at 4 because of his defensive ability next to LaMelo. No, you're taking somebody with top 5 potential. And yeah, this is maybe a little bit of positional need over best player available, but Walker right now is my 5th best player in this class. So I'm fine with taking my 5th best player over my 4th best player because he fits your system a little bit more. I think when you become like between 1 and 2, I'm always taking Wemby no matter what. I'm probably taking Scoot most of the time no matter what. Maybe some teams like Detroit, it would make sense to take Miller over him. But for Charlotte at 4, I think Jarace Walker is a great pick there. Now we're on to Orlando at number 5, and they're an interesting team also. Just because they have a ton of young talent. You have Franz, you have Banchero, you have Carter Jr. in that 3-4-5. Isaac's going to be hopefully healthy to start the season next year. You still have Chumo Kiki, Caleb Houston, Bol. Mo Wagner's been a solid player for them. They need guys in that backcourt. They also have a lot of young guys in that backcourt, like Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz, and Jalen Suggs. It looks like Markelle Fultz is going to be that guy for them next year, which I'm perfectly cool with. And I think since they have 2 lottery picks, if Chicago does not make the playoffs, you can kind of take the risk here and go with Amen Thompson at 5 if he does fall to you. I think Amen Thompson should go above his twin brother, Asor Thompson. Maybe Asor makes sense for the Magic here a little bit more, or maybe they go with somebody that could shoot the ball. I think this is a little bit high for like a Grady Dick spot at this moment, or maybe even a Nick Smith Jr., but I would go Amen Thompson here. You have another tall guard that can kind of even, I think, eventually guard shooting guards and small forwards, 2s and 3s, and just wings in general on the defensive end in year 2, 3, and 4 of his rookie deal because he has a very long frame and he's a physical guy, and I think that's what you could do here. And then if he doesn't become that point guard facilitator, that's fine. You hopefully help him with his jump shot. You saw Paolo Banchero's jump shot develop throughout this season because he was abysmal from 3 to start the year, and he's been a lot better in the second half. And maybe the Magic player development staff can use that on Amen Thompson, and he is a worthwhile pick here at 5. Yeah, you do have a little bit of a crowded kind of guard situation. Maybe you then look to trade Cole Anthony because you think maybe he's not going to be able to play that shooting guard spot, which is fine. Like I said, for the Spurs, it's a good problem to have, having young guys that like deserve playing time and that are good and then have value and upside in this league. So Washington, kind of crazy that right now they're the 6th pick in the 2023 draft. I don't think that they're going to finish here on draft night. I think it could end up going to a different team, or at least on lottery night, because they're just too good of a team at 6. But honestly, this kind of works out for them. So man, they need a point guard desperately. Imagine Amen Thompson fell to Washington. That would be a perfect fit. If they win the lottery, it looks like they're going to re-sign Kristaps Porzingis. They want to re-sign Kyle Kuzma. We'll see if he wants to stay in D.C. They're going to have Bradley Beal for the next couple of seasons. Johnny Davis really didn't have the best rookie year at all. Probably one of the worst rookie seasons and of the guys that went in the 2022 draft. So let's see kind of who we want to talk about. Do they want to go with a point guard? Do they want to go with a wing itself? Do they look at maybe Taylor Hendricks in that front court? Is this a little bit high? Yes. I think Asor Thompson is probably the right decision here. Maybe you can convert him into a point guard. Maybe you have Bradley Beal be the point guard and Asor Thompson can play the 2 because you have Kuzma that can space the 4. You have Corey Kispert, who took an elite step this year in his role in this league as kind of a sharpshooter who could space the 4. Denny has been playing better, at least kind of over the last couple of games. We know KP can space the 4. I mentioned Kuzma. And then you can have like Asor Thompson there. He could be your one like non-shooter. Like you could definitely make a lineup of Beal, Asor Thompson, Corey Kispert, Kuzma, and KP work 100%. And I think with the upside he has, the Wizards need to do that at the 6th pick. Like you need to take somebody with a very high ceiling and a very low floor, rather than like maybe somebody like a Corey Kispert who had a low floor and a low ceiling, that you kind of know what you're going to get. And I think Corey Kispert definitely took a step that people didn't really think he was going to take this year. So you love to see that from them. We're on to 7 with the Portland Trailblazers. They're a team that is in flux as well. Are they going to be trading Damian Lillard in the offseason? They should. We're going to hopefully see a lot of Anthony Simons next season, a lot of Shaedon Sharpe, and a lot of whoever they take here with the 7th overall pick. So I think they could go in a couple directions. I think they could look to take that successor to Lillard, maybe in that backcourt, not being the next Lillard, of course, because that's impossible to do. I think they could look at Nick Smith here. Maybe this is a little bit high for Jalen Hood-Schifino out of Indiana. If they want to go the wing route, they could look at Cam Whitmore. I'm going to go Cason Wallace. This is kind of the highest guy, or the highest that I've had him in a mock draft so far, but he played very well in the tournament, and that's something you could say that you can about some other guys in this class, like Nick Smith. That we'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, Cason Wallace, he's going to be my pick here out of Kentucky. The highest I have him in any mock so far. He definitely rose up my board throughout the tournament. I like the way he plays. He plays hard. He's a competitive guy, and he could be that point guard that Portland needs if they were to trade Damian Lillard. So you have Cason Wallace, you have Shaedon Sharpe, you have Anthony Simons. That's a fun trio to build around. Now we're on to the Indiana Pacers at 8, who I feel like they're not playing with house money because this is their pick, but they have their franchise guy in Halliburton. They saw more than what they probably needed to see out of Benedict Mathurin in his rookie year, and Andrew Nembhard as well. And you also still have Miles Turner, Isaiah Jackson, who I wish got more playing time, Jalen Smith, not too bad of a player. We'll see if they keep or trade Buddy Hield. But the Pacers can go in a multitude of direction. I think Grady Dick could be a really good shooter to help space that floor for them if they were to go in that direction. But I think I'm going to go with Cam Whitmore, and you have him and you have Benedict Mathurin as your wings together. You can even play him at the power forward spot, which could be very useful for this pick here, rather than going maybe somebody on the smaller end that really can't play up to the 4. So Cam Whitmore out of Nova, I think he would have a very inconsistent rookie season, and that's fine. That's fine coming out of Nova, and going to the Indiana Pacers, who seem to have a very good player development staff. We're on to the Magic at 9. This is Chicago's pick. Yeah, like I said, house money. They're going to end up with Grady Dick here, somebody that can help space the floor with Paolo Banchero, with Franz Wagner. He's going to not be like somebody like Corey Kispert because they play different styles of basketball, and I hope that Grady Dick can improve as an off-ball shooter and moving without the ball, because sometimes at Kansas he would kind of stand in the corner, and that's what I don't want for him in the NBA. I want him to be able to go off screens and dribble handoffs and spot up for 3, and that's what I think he can do in Orlando. I like their player development staff. It's weird that Suggs hasn't developed, but we've seen development out of Fultz, even out of Cole Anthony being the 15th overall pick, obviously out of Franz and out of Banchero as well. So yeah, Grady Dick, and also ending up with Amen Thompson in your first round is absurd talent there, and people are going to be all over Orlando, especially if they have 2 lottery picks. So we're on to Toronto at 10. Another team that could be picking here, could not be a disappointing season for the Raptors. They're a team that could also go best player available. They got to figure out if Siakam and Barnes is going to work in that front court long term. Are they going to re-sign Jakob Poeltl? Is this the offseason we see them trade OG Anunoby? And if so, I think they could go with a really good projected defender in Anthony Black. He's 6'7", he's a 2, he's a 3. He can even play the 1, honestly, because he's a good facilitator. He crashes the boards hard, similar to like Josh Harden, kind of that size and frame, and is a good rebounder, and he could score as well, and he could play next to Fred VanVleet, and he could be kind of like that next, not, I'm going to say OG Anunoby, because that's a lot to love to, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, and I don't think Black's going to be that anytime soon, but he could project to that one day, and we know that Toronto loves their defensive wings, at least with Kawhi, and they have Scotty Barnes and OG Anunoby just over the last couple of seasons. We're on to Utah at 11, who definitely exceeded expectations this year, and picking at 11, they must be pretty happy with that. Obviously, they'd love to win the lottery, but even competing for a playing tournament spot has been great for them. I like Taylor Hendricks here at 11. I don't even think this is that high, because he's definitely been hyped up over the last few months after not really being somebody that anybody thought was going to go in the first round when the college season started. And I'm just picturing him between Walker Kessler and Larry Markkinen, and I am just going to love that. He can help space the floor. He's a physical power forward, can play the 5. We'll see if his ball handling can allow him to play the 3 in the league, but that could end up being over time. Nobody thought that Larry Markkinen was going to be a small forward in this league. So love that pick for Utah. We're on to 12 here with OKC. 3 picks left. OKC has a ton of guards at the moment, but at this point, do you think is it wise to take a big man? Because it's not a great big man class after Wemby and Jarice Walker. Yeah, you have Taylor Hendricks, but then it's like, do you want to take Kyle Filipowski in the lottery? Khalil Ware actually just, he's entering the transfer portal. You could look at Derek Lively. It's way too high, I think, for Noah Clowney at this pick, but hey, maybe he's a pre-draft riser as well. Keontae George could be somebody with very high potential, but I don't know if they're looking to add another guard specific, so maybe somebody that could play up a little bit. So I like either the idea of getting Bryce Sensabaugh out of Ohio State. Jordan Hawkins obviously is going to be a popular name in these mock drafts, the way he's been playing in the tournament at UConn. Probably the one player that's helped this draft stock the most in March Madness. I'm going to have them, though, take Jet Howard out of Michigan. I just think he has a little bit more potential and is a little bit more crafty as a scorer than Jordan Hawkins, but I think OKC, they want to be in the playoffs next year. They might make it this year, and they've exceeded expectations as well. So they could be a team that like looks at Jordan Hawkins. And you know what? I think I'm going to talk myself into taking Jordan Hawkins here. It's a little bit high at 12. I've always had him in my 20s. And yeah, I think the pre-draft or the March Madness hype is going to put him into my lottery. He's going to be here with the 12th overall pick. So we have the Pelicans with the 13th pick. It's a swap with the Lakers, and the Lakers are going to be here at 14 in this mock. So at 13 with the Pelicans, I think there's a couple options they can go. I think either Nick Smith or Jalen Hood-Schifino would make the most sense. And because CJ McCollum probably isn't going to be here for the super long haul, we'll see if Dyson Daniels is going to end up being that one for them. So I think it's whoever you like more between Nick Smith or Jalen Hood-Schifino. Nick Smith had a very injury-riddled college season, but he reminds me of somebody that had something similar, and that was Darius Garland when he came out of Vanderbilt in the 2019 class. We didn't see a lot from him, but the potential was there, and I think you got to see that in Nick Smith, what he could be as a two-way player in this league. So he's going to the Pelicans there at 13. And then at 14, it's Jalen Hood-Schifino, who I think should 100% go in the lottery. He's going to go here to the Lakers. So just a couple notable guys that didn't go in my lottery. Keontae George, I'm not the highest guy on Keontae George in this draft, and I don't know if I would take him with a lottery pick with some of the other talent that I'd take over him. Ryan Rupert could be somebody out of France that I really like with his potential. He could end up going in the lottery because of that, similar to Ousmane Dieng last year. You could also look at Jet Howard, also somebody that could go in the lottery, as well as Bryce Sensabaugh. So just to recap this mock draft, we had Wemby at 1 to the Pistons, Scoot at 2 to the Rockets, Brandon Miller to the Spurs at 3, Jarice Walker to the Hornets at 4, Amen Thompson Magic at 5, Asor Thompson Wizards at 6, Cason Wallace to the Blazers at 7, and then Cam Whitmore to the Pacers at 8, Grady Dick to the Magic with their second lottery pick there at 9, Anthony Black to the Raptors at 10, Taylor Hendricks to the Jazz at 11, Jordan Hawkins to the Thunder at 12, Nick Smith to the Pelicans at 13, and Jalen Hood-Schifino to the Lakers at 14. So I hope you guys enjoyed that mock draft. That was super fun to do, kind of in a podcast format. Like I said, now I'm going to be joined by GiraffeNeckMarc. We're going to be talking about our MLB season predictions. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Hope you guys enjoyed the mock, and I'll catch you guys in those predictions. All right, so now I'm going to hop into the MLB part of the pod. I'm joined by Mark, GiraffeNeckMarc. What up, man? How are you?
What's good, dude? Happy to be on the podcast. Happy to talk some baseball. I mean, season's right around the corner. Can't wait.
Yeah, for me personally, like I don't get a chance to talk about baseball too much, so I'm really excited. Like for someone that talks about baseball so much, like I'm just kind of excited just to talk about some predictions, some awards, because it's going to be a really good season. I feel like there's a lot of parity in baseball right now, and I'm sure there's a bunch of like teams that could win it this year.
Dude, baseball is like at such a good point in terms of talent. Coming off the World Baseball Classic, seeing a country outside of the United States win is like really cool. And the way that Japan did it, and some teams that even snuck in, even Australia making it far. Like it's baseball's in a great spot, and the Major League Baseball season this year, like you said, is kind of up for grabs. Like there's a lot of good teams, but there is no one team that seems like the clear favorite.
Yeah, no, for real. And I feel like the World Baseball Classic itself, like that was probably just like an insane experience. Like I was really trying to get down there, and I really couldn't find time to take off of work, but like that was probably like one of like a lifetime event to be at.
Dude, it was, I mean, like, I will never miss another one. It's without a doubt, like, 2026 is the next one. It's on my calendar already. I've got the 2 weeks booked. It was the best baseball experience I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, I'm like, I have to go. Did you go to basically the whole like semifinals and maybe the quarterfinals before that?
Yeah, I actually went to all the pool games in Miami.
Oh, wow.
I was there from March 10th to March 22nd. So I was literally there for 12 days. I mean, it's a good place to be,
Miami.
right?
Yeah.
Good place to be, play some golf, watch some horse racing and stuff like that in between. But yeah, 12 days of just watching baseball nonstop and getting to see the finals at the end was pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, like for real, just like I got to watch at least the semifinals and the finals, and it's just like once like for a non-MLB season, I'm like glued into my TV. Like this is
Yes.
like insane to watch. Yeah, so we're basically just gonna be given our predictions for the season. We're gonna be given our division winners, the three wild cards, and then the three main awards
Cool.
in each league. Yeah, so yeah, we'll start off. Do you want to start off in the AL and just kind of give our division winners?
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows I'm picking the National League East, but yeah, well, let's go with the American League first. I'll let you start.
Okay. So I'll start. It pretty much came down between the Yankees or the Blue Jays for me. I guess like the Rays, we know what they are, at least as an organization. Like they don't really spend a ton of money, and it seems to work for them every year. I had the Yankees winning the division, but I don't think they're gonna win as many games this year as they did last year. And I think the Blue Jays will make it close. And I was kind of torn on between them or the Blue Jays, but I ended up going the Yankees. Who'd you end up going with?
I have the Yankees as my gut pick. Like,
Yeah.
just looking at both teams, the Blue Jays are actually, I think, even better than they were last year. The pitching's really good. The
Mhm.
bullpen's improved. And like adding Brandon Belt to that lineup is actually, I think, like low key kind of big along with Dalton Varsho. But
Mhm.
while the Yankees have had some injuries with Severino and Rodon, and the rotation doesn't look as good as it was, and the lineup maybe isn't as strong as like you think of for a typical Yankees team when you have Aaron Judge on that team. I think Volpe's going to be really big for them at shortstop. Like I've been a big fan of his. He's a Jersey kid, so I've known his like entire track to get there. And Josh Donaldson just probably can't be as bad as he was last year, and they still were one of the better offenses. So that team feels pretty dominant in the American League East, but I do think, like you said, they're not going to win as many games. It's going to be a little bit closer, and I wouldn't be shocked if the Blue Jays take it by any means.
Yeah, and I saw like so they're basically without Rodon, Sevi, and obviously Montas, like
Yeah.
basically in their rotation to start the year. And I don't even think Montas is playing this season, right? Or it's looking not good for that.
No, he's done. He's done for the year, which is a huge blow, even though he stunk last year for them, which
Yeah.
I'm a Montes guy, so I don't like seeing that. But as
Mhm.
a Yankee hater, I mean, it brings a smile to my face that he stunk.
Yeah, I was surprised like a team like the Cardinals like weren't in maybe more on him last year. I know they were talked about trying to get after him, and maybe it worked out. They didn't end up doing that.
Cardinals love a soft tossing lefty. That's what they were in Quintana. They were all on
Shout
Jordan
out Steven
Montgomery.
Matz.
Yeah, Steven Matz. They love those lefties out there.
Yeah, so okay, we have basically the same thing. Yankees winning the AL East. The Central, I bounced between two teams. I didn't end up leaving the Twins in there, so I was between White Sox and the Guardians. I ended up going with the Guardians. I really like their pitching staff: Cal Quantrill, just Shane Bieber. I know McKenzie's starting the season on the IL, but they have a really good lineup as well. And I feel like they're a little bit more deep than the White Sox. And I ended up going the Guardians. Who did you go with?
Yeah, I'm going with the Guardians too. I actually didn't have between the White Sox. I'm
Okay.
super out on that organization. Like ever since they made the incredibly stupid decision to fire Rick Renteria and go with Tony La Russa,
Hmm.
I've just been like, this is not one of the smart organizations. They don't do things the right way. And like you talked about, like the depth, that's why you ended up going with Cleveland. They definitely have a lot more depth than the White Sox for sure. The Twins are the team I'm a little bit
Yeah.
weary of, but I really do think Cleveland's by far the best team in that division. Pitching's great. Adding Josh Bell to that lineup, I think, is super big. That's a big power bat that they needed, and left-handed power hitters always play well in Cleveland. It's like a very good hitter's park for lefties, weirdly enough. They are, I think, the team to beat in that division, and like they're a couple moves away, maybe, from being like a legitimate contender. I think, honestly, in just the American League in general.
Yeah, the Guardians they were super fun last year. I guess my reasoning for the White Sox was like, I don't think like Lucas Giolito, he can't pitch that bad
Can't
again.
be,
Like
yeah.
Lance Lynn, hopefully you see Eloy and Luis Robert like healthy for a full season. Maybe Moncada would bounce back, and they have obviously Tim Anderson as well, and the younger guys like Andrew Vaughn.
Yeah.
So I know people are big on Oscar Colas as well coming up this
Yeah, I
year.
like him a lot. He's
Yeah,
really
so
good. Like they have, I want to say, like a worse version of what the Phillies are in
mhm,
that like they have their really good guys and then there's nobody else after them. They have
yeah.
like literally no depth. So if someone gets hurt or if someone's missing, like they're in big trouble. But if they do get a perfect healthy season, which is pretty almost impossible, like they will be a good team. It's just it has to go exactly right for them. That's my worry.
Yeah, I picked them to win a division last year, and like you said, like they
Too.
don't have the depth, and injuries are gonna happen, and it's probably gonna happen to them this year, and it is tough to pick them. So I ended up going with the Guardians. And then the AL West. Did you go Astros as well, or did you go to Seattle? Okay, you went
Yeah,
Astros.
it's frustrating to do like as a baseball creator to like when you do predictions because like I mean everyone knows I always pick the Mets to win the World
Hmm.
Series, but like the divisions, especially this year on the American League side, feel very straightforward. Now it doesn't mean that it's a guarantee. It's
Hmm.
obviously like baseball is one of the most like wild card sports in baseball,
Yeah.
like who or sports who just like makes the division, who wins it. But the Astros are, I think, a clear step ahead of everybody else in that division, where I think like the Mariners, Rangers, and Angels are a lot closer than people are giving them credit for.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like just the pedigree they have, and you can't really count them out. I know Altuve is going to be hurt for the start of the season, but that division is like it's definitely one of the better divisions in baseball. Like obviously besides the Oakland A's, like the Rangers are spending, the Angels you would think are going to be better, but we'll see because we always think that they're going to be better.
Dude, I'm trying my hardest to not fall for the Angels bait again, because like the more and more I look at them, I go, they are going to make a playoff, but this is going to be the year they're going to make the playoffs. Trout's going to get there. Otani's going to get there. Like this, I'm not going to say they're going to win the whole thing or win the division, but like we did see them at points last year play good baseball. And then once Trout got hurt and their pitching or their bullpen fell apart a little bit towards the end. But when you have like the two clear best players in baseball, and Trout and Otani, like Rendon he was so good before all these injuries, so good. If he's back and healthy, they're another team that has a lot of what ifs, where the Astros, it's just like, yeah, they're going to go out and play baseball and just be the best team in that division.
Yeah, and they're going to lose the Cy Young winner and still have an elite rotation with Framber and Javier. So, yeah, like for the Angels, I like what they did. I mean, like they picked up Hunter Renfroe, Gio Urshela, Tyler Anderson. I feel like those were moves that like were probably needed maybe a few years ago. Then maybe spending all that money on Anthony Rendon and then kind of distributing it elsewhere. That's why I kind of like what the Mets did 2 off seasons ago, where they got Marte and Kana and all those guys instead of they end up getting Scherzer, but instead of like just going for that one big guy, they kind of spread that out a little bit, which was nice. So I was kind of happy to see the Angels do that, and it's going to be a good division. I'm hoping we see maybe a little bit more parity this year, but I went the Astros as well, so it was tough. So we'll go on to the wild card, as we ended up having the same division winners. Do you want to give just maybe your first wild card team, maybe your one that's just going to miss out on the division?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the Blue Jays. To me, I think they're definitely the next best team. They might honestly even be like the 3rd best team in the American League, but obviously with the way that divisions work, it's a little bit tougher. But I mean, we spoke about them a little bit earlier. Their offense is absolutely dominant. It's elite. And that's with like George Springer. I mean, you just go through every position. You're like, oh, they have really good players everywhere except like second base. And even then Whit Merrifield is like a pretty good option. So to me, yeah, they're definitely going to be my first wild card team.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I think like if we put them in the Central Division, they're probably coming out with that crown there. So I went with the Blue Jays also for all the reasons you mentioned. I went with Seattle. I'm sure you're probably going to have them too. Just one of the more entertaining teams to watch last year. People are expecting another big jump from J-Rod this year. And yeah, I feel like they're going to be a pretty popular pick.
Yep, Seattle was another one of those teams. Luis Castillo could be having his maybe Cy Young season, which would be really nice because we'd been waiting for it forever in Cincinnati. And it looks like even though his numbers technically I don't think were better in Seattle, you saw him pitching and he just like was a better pitcher in a better ballpark. I think it's going to be really big for him. And they play great defense. They got Colton Wong at second base too, which is going to be huge for a ground ball guy like Luis Castillo. So expect big things from them.
Yeah, and like the guy they gave up for Wong too, like and Jesse Winker, like everybody kind of thought he was the main piece getting over from that trade, and it ended up being Eugenio Suarez, and he's like obviously such a big power bat. It's something they need in that lineup, and they're just so much fun to watch. And like guys like George Kirby as well there. So yeah, I had the Mariners, and then the last one, I think we're gonna actually have something different here. So I mentioned them before. I went with the White Sox. I wanted to be a little bit different. You could throw the Rays in there, you could throw the Twins, maybe the Angels, maybe the Rangers. I ended up going with the White Sox, but they're just a few injuries away from just like being a terrible pick.
Yeah, I like it. It feels dirty for me to not put the Rays in. Like I feel really bad about it because I like everything I do. I'm always like, you don't doubt the Rays. They're smarter than anybody. That is the team. But I look at their roster. I'm like, they're just not very good this year on paper. They never are, but this year in particular, it feels weak. So I'm actually going to go to the American League West. I think there's going to be another team that comes out of there, and I've been between the Angels and the Rangers, and I think, man, this one's so tough. I believe in the Rangers more, but I think I want the Angels more.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Angels as that last wild card team. They finally do it for Trout and Otani. Dude, get them there.
I'd love to see it. We just got to see him. Like, what? Trout hasn't been there in 2014. Otani's never been there. Yeah. Like, we need to see them play October baseball.
I think also playing less games in their division because the new schedule is actually going to help them a little bit. Yeah. And like, I mean, it's just good for baseball too that everyone gets to watch Trout and Otani at some point this year as long as they're healthy. But yeah, the Rangers are the team I'm actually legitimately scared of just because if they're healthy with that rotation, I mean, they might just have the best rotation in baseball if that rotation's healthy. It's just every single one of those guys outside of Martin Perez is like, can he pitch more than 120 innings this year? But if they do, that's a scary team too.
Yeah. Are you, as a Mets fan, are you rooting for DeGrom this year?
I am. I
Yeah. Okay.
have no ill will towards Jacob deGrom.
Good. Good.
I
Good.
can't blame him. Go get your money. He's not a New York guy. It wasn't the place for him. I won't say he didn't like New York, but he definitely didn't feel at home, I
Yeah.
think, in New York. So money talks. I hope the best for him. I'm definitely not one of those Mets fans who's like got sour grapes. We got Justin Verlander. I'm good. I'm great.
I know. Yeah, me too. There was just like something about like wanting to see like DeGrom retire as a Met and like
Yeah.
never leaving, which is so cool because like we got that with David Wright. But no, me too. Like DeGrom was just like such a nice piece for us, like when times were so low in like 2017 and 2018. So wishing him the best as well. So we basically had pretty similar player predictions in the AL. You just had the Angels and I had the White Sox as like that last wild card spot. So we'll go over to the NL East. And maybe this is me being on the opposite end of the Mets spectrum, and I could never trust them when it comes to matters most. So I ended up going with Atlanta to repeat and win the division again. I'm sure the Mets are going to be very close. We'll see how they kind of are this season in their bullpen with no Edwin Diaz. But I want to pick the Mets. I do. I ended up going with Atlanta, but you ended up going the Mets.
Yeah, I mean, last year I played the respectful game. I didn't pick the Mets to like really do anything particularly crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, they got to beat the Braves first, so I'm not going to give them the division. And it did me no good. It did me nothing. My good karma and not trying to be arrogant and cocky didn't do me any favors. So I'm going like full. If I think the Mets are the best team, I'm picking them,
Love
and I
it.
do. I think they are the best team on paper right now in that division. I mean, top to bottom, the lineup is really, really strong. I know people hate Daniel Vogelback for some reason. I don't get it. I think it's just because he's fat and slow, but he's a really good hitter. It's a really good hitter.
Yes.
And we have Brett Beatty and Vientos coming up at some point with Alvarez that can maybe give us some offense a little bit later in the year when those guys are ready. The pitching staff is great. Losing Diaz is a killer, but it's the closer at the end of the day. If the closer is the difference between you being a World Series team and being just like everybody else, you probably don't have a good enough roster anyway. And I don't think the Mets are built that way. I think David Robertson, Ottavino, whatever the combination of those guys will be more than capable of locking it down at the end of the game.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like, were you surprised a little bit when they didn't call up either Beatty or Vientos, or you're like, okay, like the service time and all that, or maybe they weren't ready, or did you think at least one of them was going to make the major league roster?
Yeah, I didn't think Vientos was. I'm not as high on Vientos as like a lot of other Mets fans. Just like he has incredible raw power, but I think he's just definitely got a little more like seasoning that needs to happen. He also doesn't really have a position.
Yeah.
Beatty, I thought it was actually going to make it out of camp. I really was surprised about him, especially because the platoon with him and Eduardo Escobar makes way too much sense. But I mean, even Billy Epler brought it up in a press conference about him that like guys like Arenado, Devers, and there was someone else, but like these young 18-year-old third basemen, the amount of innings that they got or games that they played at that position in the minors before they got called up, Brett Beatty is like 40, 50 games away from kind of being in that same range.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, well, if Nolan Arenado spent like an extra month in the minors, like Brett Beatty can do the same.
Is Beatty only 19 or 18?
Well, no, he's 22 or
okay,
23.
yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, is he? No way, he's still a teenager.
No, but he's going into I think his fourth or fifth year in the minors. I want to say
Gotcha.
2018 draft.
Yeah.
But
that was the loaded class, right? With like Bobby Witt and Rushman in that class.
No, he was Rushman, and
Okay.
he was like, I mean, Andrew Vaughn was the one who I think got called up the quickest. But yeah, that class was absolutely loaded, and I'm okay with it too because, like, just let's see what we got first, and if we need to call in the reinforcements, I'm cool with that. Beatty's gonna be ready though whenever they call on him.
Yeah, and I feel like the Mets like they'll actually like call him up like when they need him. Like they're not gonna like make a I don't know. Like I feel like just it's a new regime and like with the Cano and like the McCann things. Like when it's done, and they're not gonna like hold on to it until the sun clause. Yeah, which is nice. So we're a little bit different on the NL East, but I'm sure we're both gonna have the teams we didn't pick in the wild card. So we'll go over to the Central, and I mean, like I don't love what the Brewers do, and I know they're going to be a team that's going to be at least fighting a little bit for the division. I went with the Cardinals, but I feel like the Brewers are a team that doesn't really spend, and they try not to improve their team too much. And we're seeing what's going on with Corbin Burns if they're going to end up paying him before he's a free agent at one point. I went with the Cardinals. I think that they're going to be like the pretty much favorite to win the division. I think like obviously Chicago made some nice moves. We're not going to see it from Pittsburgh or Cincy this year, but I feel like it's the Cardinals division to lose.
Yeah, I'm actually unbelievably torn, and I think even in this conversation, I technically have not made my decision yet because like what I had written down originally was Brewers. I actually I like their roster. I think it's super boring, which is understandable why people would not be drawn to them. Cause like you look at that lineup and you're like, okay, like who cares? Like what is this? What am I looking at? The pitching's obviously disgusting. Their bullpen is going to be like the Rays, and they just plug and play guys, and they're always going to be really good. The Cardinals, though, just like top to bottom, that lineup is one of the best in all of baseball. So they're going to score a ton of runs. What scares me with them, though, is their starting pitching. Their starting pitching is for sure not good. Like Jordan Montgomery's all right, but like relying on him to kind of carry a lot of innings, the Yankees traded him away for a reason, I think. They were like, he's not a playoff pitcher on our roster. So him being a big guy in St. Louis scares me a little bit. You still have Wainwright, you have Michaelis, Jack Flaherty, I think is going to end up pitching, but you also can't rely on him. I think I'm going to pick the Cardinals just because like you're hedging your bets a little bit here. Like if you're giving percentages, who do you think's more likely? I think it is the Cardinals, but I'm really high on the Brewers this year.
Okay.
I think they could make a push for that the NL Central crown.
Yeah, I feel like for the Cardinals rotation, it's like such a high variance, like man, because you're relying so much on Wainwright, who's getting up there, and I think he's starting the season on the IL, or
He's hurt.
Yeah, he's hurt. Like Flaherty, if he's gonna bounce back to what he was like a few seasons ago, Matt's has had his injuries. And then like Montgomery and Michaelis, you're gonna rely on them a lot. It's tough. I feel like they're gonna be a team that needs to make a move at the deadline if there is a starting pitcher available.
Their rotation is like what I think of the Brewers lineup. Like it's just like they have guys, and they're like good, but like at the end of the day, nobody gets you excited.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we're opposite here, right? You're going Brewers.
I'm going Cardinals.
Okay, you're gonna go Cardinals. You're gonna go Cardinals. All right, so let's go into the NL West, and I think I want to hear who you have in the NL West.
I got the Padres.
Okay.
I got the Padres. I think they are definitely like a step above the Dodgers, and I honestly think on paper they might be the best team in all of baseball. Bringing in Xander Bogaerts to a team that already has Juan Soto and Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis and Jake Cronenworth and like just that lineup and the pitching staff. I think Musgrove's starting the year on the IL because he like dropped a weight on his toe or whatever it was. That's a Mets injury right there. So
I know,
right? It happened to us. But Darvish, Snell, those guys are really good at the top. Musgrove, when he comes back, is going to be great. Seth Lugo's looked really good in spring. He's not getting any strikeouts, but he's pitching 6 innings and limiting hard contact. Their bullpen's still very good with Josh Hader. They feel like, what everyone thought the Dodgers were the last few years coming into the season. So I'm going to give them the National League West.
Yeah, I agree there. It's like weird like this year that we're so high on the Padres and a team not named the Dodgers, but it seems like this is the year that like on paper this team is just better in maybe every single category than the Dodgers. I went with the Padres as well for basically every reason you mentioned. So we basically kind of like talked about maybe some of our wild card teams. I ended up going with the Mets as my first one. I also have the Dodgers and the Phillies there. I feel like we got to respect the Phillies for at least making the World Series, adding Trey Turner, adding Taijuan Walker, who looks like a little interesting during spring training. We'll see if he's hurt, but those were my 3 teams that I had coming out of the NL wild card. Who do you have?
I got the Braves.
Okay.
I got the Dodgers. I think those 2 teams are still very much playoff teams. Braves, again, like they could easily win the division. They're one of the elite teams, I think, in baseball right now. It's just the National League East.
No Phillies?
I don't have the Phillies.
Okay.
I don't have the Phillies. That's going to be the Brewers for me. The Phillies, obviously top end talent, might be up there with the best in Major League Baseball with Real Muto. Harper's going to come back. Trey Turner, like you just mentioned, Schwarber's a beast. And Castellanos was so bad last year, he can't be that bad. He just can't be. But everything else on that team in terms of offense is like I don't really know what to think. Like Bryson Stott, Derek Hall. I think Jake Cave right now is starting in the outfield with Brandon Marsh. Like that's a horrendous outfield. The 3 names out there with Jake Cave, Brandon Marsh, and Nick Castellanos. They're pitching, obviously, Nolan Wheeler, the 2-headed beast, and Ranger Suarez when he comes back. Taijuan. But Ranger Suarez is hurt. Taijuan, we know, has never pitched well in the second half and has always had injury issues. And just like their bullpen is fine. I think it's getting overhyped because they have a lot of like hard throwing guys that you've heard of. Yeah. But they walk so many players. Like there's going to be a huge walk problem. And in a park like Citizens Bank Park, you want to keep guys off the base because fly balls go out. It's a bandbox.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's also me being a Philly hater and hating the Phillies and 4th place Phillies meme. But yeah, I'm happy to have them miss the playoffs, and I'll use the World Series hangover as that as well.
It would make me nothing like happy to see them miss the playoffs too. I live in Philly. Like a bunch of my friends are Phillies fans, so it's the worst. But yeah, and I feel like they're there. Yeah, I feel like they're a team also that like for at least their bats, if players get hurt, like they don't really have a good like at least AAA system to call players up. Like we'll see if like Painter gets called up this year, but I know he's dealt with an injury. But yeah, like they don't have reinforcements and they really can't trade a lot of prospects as well to improve their lineup if needed.
No, they scare me from the fact that like they scare me the bad way, the same way they scare me the good way. Like when they went on that World Series run, it's
Mhm.
like, okay, like when things are clicking, they are one of the best teams in baseball. They're
Yeah.
really hard to beat. Like Nolan Wheeler can pitch 4 games in a 7-game series and you just
Mhm.
lose. That's just how it is. But when things go bad, they automatically go to like, whoa, this team is not good. This is like when Trey Turner was on the Washington Nationals and they were bad. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of similar ish vibes that I get with this Phillies team this year. They also could just win the division. So like this made me look stupid, but I'm happy to die on the slandering Philly hill.
No, I respect it a lot. So that's basically who we have winning the divisions and the wild cards. We can basically just hop into the World Series prediction. We don't have to go through each round of the playoffs. Who do you have winning the 2023 World Series and over who?
Man, I think as much as I would love to pick the Mets, and I think it would
Yeah.
be like good memes, I think I'm not going to. I need the Mets to prove it to me a little bit more, a
Mhm.
little bit more. The way the season ended stunk last year. I don't think there's question marks necessarily with this team, but I do want to see it a little bit. I want to see them prove it a little bit before I start waving that flag around. They get hot through May, I'll start calling them World Series champions. But I'm going to go with the World Series right now. I'm going to go Padres versus the Blue Jays. Padres, Blue Jays. I don't feel good about it. I honestly don't. Like,
That's funny. I had my World Series prediction, my biased one as Mets over the Yankees, but my
yes, of course.
non-biased was Padres over the Blue Jays as
Ah, there
well.
we go.
Because I was like, all right, I'm gonna take a division winner that everyone's gonna be high on in the Padres, and I was like, I'll take a wild card team, and I ended up going to the Blue Jays.
Well, like the Blue Jays kind of have this fun thing too, where like they're going to score a ton of runs. Their starting pitching is really good.
Yeah.
Like Kevin Gausman's awesome. I know I kind of messed up in my last video and say he's been shaky this spring. He's been shaky with the new rules. He doesn't feel comfortable with them, but he hasn't given up a single run and he's been dominant. So like imagine when the guy gets comfortable how he's going to be pitching. Manoa's been really good. I don't know if Hyun-Jin Ryu's coming back this year. I haven't really looked too much into him, but like Bassett as a 3 is a really good number
Really
3.
good three. Is
And they,
Tiedemann coming up this year?
I think if he pitches well enough, there's a
Yeah,
world where
okay.
he could. Like,
Because he's
again,
a top prospect that could help them out. Yeah, if needed.
if he helps you win a World Series, I'm sure the Blue Jays are going to do it. And that
Yeah.
lineup, top to bottom, is just absolutely disgusting. And they have depth. Like, I think they have guys that can fill in at spots for them. So, I don't know. I was really high on the Blue Jays last year. They let us down, but maybe that was like the aggressive. We were 1 year too early with them.
Yeah, could be.
Is everyone going to be picking Padres, Blue Jays now?
I
I can't
know.
believe we have the exact same one.
Because if everyone's picking it, then it's just not going to happen at
That
all.
is not going to happen. That is dead of the water. Like you said, the bias pick. If I was going to do like my sheer bias, I'd probably do Mets Yankees like you and Mets over the Yankees. Like that's it's a dream scenario, especially from the content world. I'm like,
oh my god, imagine that.
Mets Yankees World Series would be amazing for the channel. But I think both Mets and Yankees have a little something to prove because they just haven't really shown that next level yet.
Yeah.
Neither of the Blue Jays, to be fair. Padres did last year, just ran into the Phillies. But you know what's fun too? Trade deadline and all the moves that are going to happen in between. That changes so much. And that's what everyone forgets when you look back at predictions. They're like, how did you not think this is going to happen? I'm like, well, I didn't know the Padres were going to trade for Juan Soto last year.
Yeah.
What did you expect?
And like injuries are going to happen as well. And you just can't predict this. Like this is what, 8 months from now or whatever. So like so much stuff is going to change.
Such a long season.
Yeah. So those are basically our division and wild card and World Series predictions. We had very similar stuff, which makes me feel better about my predictions. But we'll just kind of give a quick run through of like just an award prediction or maybe somebody else that you love in there. We'll stick with the AL first. Like MVP, I wanted to be creative and different, but I went chalk. I went Ohtani. He's literally like even money to win AL MVP, which is just crazy.
He's such a freak, man. Like, how do you actually beat him to win the MVP? Like he pitches and hits, and he might be the best pitcher in the American League, and he's one of the best hitters. So like putting that together is not fair. And I feel like the American League MVP too, like you have Shohei Ohtani. If it's not him, it's Trout. If it's not him, it's Aaron Judge. Like those three guys up top are super hard. So the way I like to do is like you said, the chalk Shohei Ohtani, but then I have my fun pick, which I think is Kyle Tucker. He had a little bit of a breakout last year. Saw him play really well when they actually played him in the World Baseball Classic. And I think the power, the speed, the defense, everything's going to really come together this year for a big season.
Okay. Yeah, I like that a lot too. I was high on him a little bit last year, but like, yes, if somebody needs to beat Ohtani, they have to have an Aaron Judge like season, which the odds of that just aren't going to happen every year. I'll go with the fun pick as well. I'm going to take Corey Seager out in Texas. I think he's going to have he got up to a rough start last year, and I know he killed it in the second half. He had that one 2-week stretch where he hit 6 home runs in 6 games, and I think he's just going to take a step up this year. Another year in in Texas, and he's just gonna be my fun pick because he's like plus 4,000. So I'm like, why not?
Yeah, you got to look at those deep cuts, everyone. The dark horse, because you're like, I'm not gonna bet Shohei Ohtani even money and injury,
No,
and he's
no.
done for the year. Like it's done.
Yeah, I actually got lucky last year. I actually bet Aaron Judge to win MVP. He was like
Oh
plus
wow.
1,500. But yeah, I remember like Soto was like plus 300. I'm like, that's not even gonna bother. And he's on
Yeah.
Washington too at the time.
Yeah, like the way for him to win an MVP, like I understand from a talent standpoint with these guys, but also like it, like we said kind of earlier, which is going back to our World Series thing. It's never chalk. It's never chalk.
No, it
So
never.
it's hard not to predict chalk, but it's never that.
hmm Yeah, so we'll just stick with MVP. So we'll go over to the NL. Who do you have winning your NL MVP?
This one hurts me a little bit, and it doesn't make sense with this team not making the playoffs. In
Uh,
my
uh,
prediction,
it might be my player.
I have Trey Turner. I
Oh,
have Trey
okay.
Turner. Yeah, seeing him in the World Baseball Classic and how he's torn up spring training, knowing how much of a bandbox Philly is, I think we're going to see the big power surge from Trey Turner this
hmm
year, like we haven't seen before. And in that lineup, he's going to be hitting towards the top, driving in runs, probably winning games. I mean, more likely than not. Like even if they miss the playoffs, they're probably going to be up there. And he's just one of the best players in baseball anyway, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like that pick. I feel like everyone's gonna be riding Trey Turner too, and rightfully so, of how great he was in the World Baseball Classic. I thought maybe you were gonna go with somebody I went with, and it was Austin Riley. I think the defense will factor into it. And I know he made a little bit of a run last year, but it was then Goldschmidt and Machado and Arenado pulled away.
Yeah.
I think if he just keeps improving there, he's got the new contract, and I know he's maybe not the greatest defensive third baseman, so maybe he improves that. He'll be, but again, that conversation he just rakes. So I didn't want to go like maybe one of the top guys of like Betts, Soto, Tatis. So I went Riley.
I really like the Riley pick. He's someone who gets slept on, kind of like you said, because of Arenado, Machado, Devers, Jose Ramirez. Like everyone forgets about this guy, but like as much as I hate the Braves, got respect Austin Riley. He came up and was so bad, and it's just become like one of the better hitters in baseball.
I know, right? Yeah, like he's been incredible for them. We'll move over to the AL Cy Young. I had like chalk for mine, Jacob DeGrom. It's weird because like the AL, I feel like, or at least their pitching hasn't been great. I don't know. I guess like last year, like you had Verlander and like it was like Dylan Cease was like number two. So they're adding arguably the best pitcher in baseball. So DeGrom was my fun pick, and then I guess a little bit less fun, I went Luis Castillo, or more fun, I went Castillo.
Yeah, my pick. I think people are sleeping on Garrett Cole a lot,
Okay.
and like I don't want him to win the Cy Young because I love like just acting like he's not a big game pitcher and that he's got like no clutch factor whatsoever. But the amount of hate that he's
I feel like he
getting
gets too much hate
is way too much. Way
Yeah.
like he is still one of the 5-6 best pitchers in baseball,
for sure.
and people are not even putting him in their top 10. And I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
what happened? Have we forgot who this guy is? So I think this is unfortunately maybe the little chip on his shoulder that he needs. And I think he's gonna get the Cy Young in the American League.
I like that. I guess like yeah, like Yankee on a huge contract, he's gonna have higher expectations than everybody else, and I feel like he'll have like one of those blow up starts. But I feel like sometimes like when he gets blown up, like he'll maybe give up 4 or 5 runs in the first, he'll still end up pitching like 5, 6 innings. Like he'll settle
100%.
down. Yeah, so I think he just has too high expectations over there in New York.
If Rodon wasn't hurt, he was 100% my pick. But starting the year hurt, it basically
no,
is like
that's
impossible to come back from that unless you're DeGrom.
Yeah, I agree totally. We'll go over to the NL Cy Young. Couple guys at the top like Alcantara and Burns, the two most recent winners. That are going to be probably the favorite, or I think they are the favorites. Who do you have winning the NL Cy Young?
I have Corbin Burns' teammate, Brandon Woodruff.
I like it.
So Brandon Woodruff last year, if you look at his last few starts, I think like his last 4 or 5, he was lights out. And they found out something with Brandon Woodruff that he had some kind of ailment or disease where basically the entire year he had not been able to feel the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
He started taking blood thinners, I think. And all of a sudden the feeling came back and he's like, oh my God, I'm one of the best pitchers in baseball again. So I think blood thinner or, newly medicated Brandon Woodruff is just going to pop off.
I like that a lot. Yeah, I had him in fantasy last year, and I remember just being so frustrated because he was so good the year prior. And then I read that, and I was like, okay, well, that obviously makes sense that there's a reasoning. So I like that pick a lot. I think we would probably lose our minds as Mets fans if your MVP pick was right and my Cy Young pick is right. I'm going Aaron Nola.
He's so good.
He's insane. I feel like this might be the year he gets it. I don't know is he in a contract year or does he have another team option? I'm not sure.
He is a contract year.
He's a contract year. Okay, so that like helps my argument there because people tend to ball out in their contract years, and I feel like he's just like due for that like prime elite pitching season, and I'm going Aaron Nola.
Another guy who doesn't get enough respect, and I know why. It's because he throws like 93. Like nothing he does is like particularly cool, but then you look at the end of the year, like, oh, his numbers are great, and that was with like one of the worst defenses behind him in baseball.
Yeah, no, I agree there. And then we'll get into the final kind of part of this. We'll get into the rookie of the years, which I feel like are kind of one of the more fun awards because like so many different players could win this. I remember like last year in the NL, the favorite was Seiya Suzuki and O'Neal
Yeah.
Cruz, and ended up going to Michael Harris or then maybe Spencer Strider. So you really have no idea who's going to win this award. We'll start in the AL rookie of the year. Who do you have there?
I have Masataka Yoshida.
Okay.
Kind of riding this World Baseball Classic wave that
Mhm.
you guys have probably figured out a little bit here, but he broke the record for RBIs in the World Baseball Classic tournament. He's going to be at the top of the order, I think, for the Red Sox. He's shown a little bit of pop this offseason or during spring training. He just looks like he's a really good hitter. And I think, like, a lot of the time, what happens with the Rookie of the Year, like voting and whoever wins it, just comes down to who plays the most a lot of the time.
Basically.
And the Red Sox don't really have anybody else to play besides him, whether it's in left field or at DH. So I think he's going to be my pick. Gunnar Henderson's the favorite, I feel like.
Yeah, he is the favorite, but no, that's a good pick, and he's like a contact god, right? Like he's just like gonna get on base. He's not gonna strike out a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's like a prime position to win this award. I ended up going like I wanted to go with either Grayson Rodriguez, but I ended up going a little bit more crazy. I went Hunter Brown just because I feel like the Astros. Yeah, I feel like they just like turn these guys out, and like they had Jeremy Pena last year, who was so good and replaced Correa, and maybe Brown's just gonna be a good rookie there. So it's just a fun pick.
Hunter Brown was the one that I had next. That was between Yoshida and Hunter Brown because the co-host of my podcast is like a big pitching guy.
Yeah.
And he's just been drooling over Hunter Brown. He's like, dude, this is the next Astros guy. That's why they let Verlander go. They don't care. They have Hunter Brown.
That's crazy. Yep. And they're going to have him for 5 years of control, basically. So our final one is the NL Rookie of the Year. I went Kodai Senga. I feel like did you go him as well?
I went Kodai Senga as well. Yeah. I was like, I got to give a Mets player one award this year.
I know, right? Yeah. Cause like you're going to have your Corbin Carrolls and your Jordan Walkers, but you know, he's MLB ready. He's coming over. He's going to be a really good pitcher right away. It seems like, and he's a fun pick. Yeah.
He's going to have his peaks and valleys. Like the highs are going to be like, whoa, okay. Like this guy's so sick. And then he's going to have a game where he throws like an inning and a half and gives up 9 and walks like 8 guys. It's going to happen. We've been trying to prepare Mets fans like, hey, just be ready. Like there are going to be some god awful starts like in the middle of June for Kodai Senga, but he throws 98, which like a lot of Japanese pitchers don't come over with. That ghost fork is like a legitimately disgusting pitch. It made Jordan Walker look foolish. And his slider or his sweeper that he's now working on like is definitely improving. So having that combination of that plus the Mets pitching development's been really good. And I'm a Mets fan, so let's go Kodai Senga. Yeah,
nah, I love it. I know at least in the NL, I think the last 2 years that it's been down between a pitcher and a hitter, and it's gone to the hitter. So it scares me for the pick because I think last year it was Harris over Strider, and the year before it was India over Trevor Rogers.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, maybe they're gonna just end up giving it to a hitter because it's like a little bit more sexier. But yeah, let's go. I'll go Kodai Senga.
Yeah, you know what it is too. If Spencer Strider finished the year, he probably gets it. But it's like kind of like the Yelich MVP year with Cody Bellinger because Yelich didn't finish the season. People were like, it's the guy who's playing right now because he's been hot. So yeah, as long as Kodai Senga, honestly, I just want a healthy year out of Kodai Senga. As long as he's healthy, gives us like 150 innings, I think Mets fans would be super, super pumped with that.
Yeah, no, that'd be beautiful. So yeah, that's basically our awards, our predictions, and thank you for coming on, Mark. That was super fun, just like talking baseball, and I'm super excited for this season.
Dude, thank you for having me. You forced me to really get to work on my predictions and get ready to put this YouTube video out later.
No, yeah, it sounds good. Mark's gonna obviously have his predictions, his video. You guys probably already know about that if you're into baseball stuff. So yeah, thanks again, Mark, for coming on, and we'll catch you guys later.
Peace.
All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast episode. It was really fun to talk to Mark. He's super insightful and knowledgeable about the MLB, and I'm more of a casual fan. I play my Dynasty baseball and such, and I check my fan graphs here and there, but I'm no diehard baseball fan. But it was cool to talk baseball for kind of like the first time in a while on the channel, especially my first time with anybody really talking about in a baseball format, especially on a podcast, and it was super fun doing that mock draft as well. So any constructive criticism is really appreciated. I'm going to try to have a guest on each episode, kind of just with a different skill set, different knowledge set, because I think that'll be really fun to do. So if you're on Spotify, I'd appreciate a rating and review. Same with Apple Pod, or even like a like and a comment on YouTube, but you don't have to if you don't want to. So that is good for me. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see y'all in the next episode of the pod. Peace.